Hello and welcome to Sensei podcast. This is Manos Brilakis discussing with leaders in the field of CTO and complex PCI. Sensei means teacher or master in Japanese. The goal of the Sensei podcast is to help you learn and improve in CTO and complex PCI so that you can become the best that you can be and offer your patients the best possible results. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sensei Podcast. It is my great pleasure to introduce our guest today, who is Dr. Sudhir Rathore from the Frimley Health NHS Foundation in the UK. It's a good friend, expert CTO operator, has done a lot of work over many, many years. Sudhir, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Manos. It's a pleasure and a great honor to be invited to talk to you on this podcast. Obviously, we have interacted together for over the years.
It's a pleasure, and thank you again so much. And as I ask most people, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you become a CTO complex operator? What was your journey? How did this happen for you?
Right. Okay. So it's a very interesting question. So I started my cardiology training around 2002, 2003. And then when I was learning to be a cardiologist, an interventional cardiologist, obviously the coronary intervention excited me. And then the one thing which I noticed across in UK and other hospitals as well, the chronic total occlusion was the common lesions which left untreated. And if treated also, the success rates were pretty low. And during the same time, I was attending international conferences and used to see Japanese operator doing these cases either live or discuss these cases with very high success rate and using techniques which I have not known or ever heard of or not seen anybody doing that. So in 2007 or 8, I got in one of these meetings in Euro PCRs to be specific, and I just had a chance to meet some Japanese operator, and I expressed my interest to learn a bit more and do a fellowship, dedicated CTO PCI fellowship in Japan. So I still remember meeting in a hotel Dr. Takahiko Suzuki, who was a great CTO operator in a hospital in Toyohashi Heart Center. And in principle, he agreed that I can do a fellowship. So that was it. And then I came back to my
Mhm.
hospital, carried on with my training. And then it took about a couple of years to
Mhm.
get this materialized because there was no formal fellowship program in Japan. So I applied to my hospital. I want to do a fellowship. They said we need some letters. So I got in touch with them. So they agreed to it. And then they said, you can come here for a year. But there were two requirements. One is that you will only get a license to practice here after 3 months when you are in the country. So 3 months you will not be doing anything, and then after that you will do the procedures and you will stay for 1 year. And second thing was, which was more difficult for me, was like we can't pay you anything. This is a government regulation in Japan, that we can't pay you, but we will just try to look after you as well as we could. So we can't give you a formal like a salary. So but I decided at that point that I have to learn this chronic total occlusion angioplasty and get more experience, and this will be a very good opportunity for me. So I took a year out of my program, which was recognized by my hospital in Liverpool, in north of England, where I was training. And there I landed in Japan to do this fellowship. And before that, my CTO experience was very limited. And there I obviously got involved in chronic total occlusion angioplasty and other complex angioplasty intravascular imaging program. So I went there in 2009. So I was there for a year, 2009 and 2010, from December 2009 to December 2010. And that's where I got interested in chronic total occlusion angioplasty and was working under Professor Takahiko Suzuki and Professor Osamu Kato. I was lucky that he was still there. So that is how it all started, and I got involved in the procedures. Got to learn observing initially for 3 months when my license was getting processed, And then I slowly got to learn about the procedures, especially from the masters. There were a few other operators there. To Chikane used to be there. Kenya Nasu was training. So he was a young operator, but few other operators were there. So it was a completely different ball game as compared to UK. Their very dedicated program was there, and I started learning there. And then during that training program, I was very interested to learn from Osamu Kato. Now, Osamu Kato was very rarely there. So one day I just got hold of him. I said, well, I have come to do this fellowship just because of you to see some cases, do some cases together. So he said that he travels around a lot. He works here, but he only do once a month procedure here, but he does procedures every day around in different parts of the country. So I said, I would love to come with you. So he completely agreed with it. And then obviously being me on no salary there was very difficult. They arranged accommodation for me and a few other support. So then I said, well, this will be traveling expenses will be huge. So he very kindly contacted Asahi team, the central Asahi team, and Asahi team agreed to it as a training program, and they supported my travel and all the fellowship program from there onwards. And I used to travel with him, so we used to travel on the train 3 years, 3 hours journey from Toyohashi in mid Japan to Tokyo, and he will do the cases there. And on the train, basically, I used to talk to him, and he used to explain to me. In 2009, obviously, the technique was very evolving. Majority of the things were anti-grade, anti-grade wire escalation. Even the retrograde was not many people were doing it. He was doing some. He was trying to explain to me. I was not able to understand, and that is where he gave me his 30 cases which he has done around the world in 2009, 10, which he used retrograde procedure. He called it was initially contemporary cart, and then he said it is a reverse cart. I was guided. So that's how it all started. So I went through those cases. I understood he was doing those cases, learning with him as a apprentice, as his apprentice. And then I published this seminal paper of 30 cases. I was guided reverse card, which was published in Jack Intervention, came out in 2011. And obviously then the procedure started from there. And obviously the things have evolved a lot from that time and now. So that is like my initial how I got involved and started my training. So I stayed there for 12 months, and then I came back to my hospital in Liverpool, where I started doing some CTO cases together. And then obviously in United States things were evolving at that time, and then this hybrid algorithm came in, and I've been in close contact with all the training programs and CTO program which happened in New York for many years.
Perfect. So, what an amazing journey. I mean, you clearly, literally have. I don't know of anyone else that actually has done that in Japan. Is there anyone else who's been to Japan like you did
Well, I
to
don't.
do a full
Yeah,
year of
so
training?
not full year. I see. I used to see the people coming for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, just observer. So when I was exploring, they said you can come as an observer, but you're not allowed to touch anything. You just stand there and just observe. So I wanted to do some cases as well with them and do other things as well. Obviously, travel around in Japan and learn. And there's so many meetings and things. So, and one interesting thing which I still remember when I started. So I said the 3 months is too long. They said, and the other thing, the Japanese, obviously Takahiko Suzuki and other Japanese operators said to me that you've come from London, from UK. Obviously, you are from India, but you have got used to eating with the fork and knife. So you have to learn to eat with chopsticks. And when you get perfect with chopsticks, that is when we will let you in the cath lab. So obviously there was a hidden message behind it. I used to talk to them. Initially, I didn't understand much. I said, then they tell that I think you have to learn the fine wire movements and fine movements and procedural aspect of this before you get into the cath lab. So that was quite an interesting, and they took a lot of pain to obviously get me going and let me do the cases, and they will observe. Obviously, they must be getting frustrated because I was just starting from very lower levels, and so they took and they made all efforts for me to publish as well and do get clinical experience during those remaining 9 months.
And did you speak any Japanese, or it was mainly communication in English? How did you
So
communicate?
yeah, so I used to communicate. So my job was only in the cath lab, so I was not doing any acute medical take or anything. So I was only always supposed to be supervised. I had this badge which I have to wear around my neck. Uh, so I learned some common greetings. So I used to introduce myself to the patient. And I used to, I was able to learn when I give local anesthetic how the patient will feel, and then there will always be somebody around and they can speak in English. And it is a lot of observation. First, initially, I did observe a lot, and then I did some cases there. The volumes were not that high, but I understood what it involves and looked at their databases, did some publication, and that really increased my knowledge of how angioplasty has evolved from. For them also, from 2002 to 2010, their success rates have gone from 70 to 80% to about 85, 90%. How that journey happened, and obviously more use of intravascular ultrasound, integrated wire escalation, and the Corsair was not there. Obviously, at that time, it was used to be called channel dilator. So they were working on variety of things.
Sure.
And I still remember Dr. Kato talking at that time about this radio frequency plasma wire, which has come to fruition now. Obviously, not used clinically, but he was talking about it at that time that we will do something like this, ablate the plaque antegrade retrogradely to make connection. And I've seen some of the research and first in man study starting recently in Japan with this plasma wire.
Wonderful. And Sudhir, obviously, it was a big challenge, right, to go to a different country, different language. How did you find I guess the first of all, there's the financial part, as you said, but also the emotional part, the strength, the energy to function in a unknown environment that can be high stress. That these procedures, can be very stressful.
Yeah, so that was quite challenging. The decision initially, we agreed as a family. My wife, she's a gynecologist, and I've got twins. They were born in 2004, so they were only like 5 or 6 years old at that time when I went to Japan. So she, obviously, we have to just seek some help, being originally from India. So some family members came over to support my wife because of two twins, and my wife working in hospital to provide some child care. So it was very challenging and difficult. I now realize that obviously my wife and family has done so much sacrifice to get me there, and I always used to think it as an investment in my career. That I think obviously I didn't get paid anything for 12 months. Which was a financial constraint, but it was worth it in the long term, I think.
And then, how were you able to apply? So obviously, you got involved in this area at a very early stage with the best people doing them and the ones who actually invented the procedure. How difficult was it to understand what was going on and appreciate and learn the nuances and the fine technique? The wire escalation, for example, the wiring is always a little tricky, and even now people are still debating how you can replicate it and how you can apply it. How were you able to learn those fine nuances of the technique?
Yeah, so interesting. So initially, when I started learning, there was this concept of wire escalation. Obviously, was there, but not all these series of wires available. I think it used to be Fielder XT only. There was no, and then after that, straight it was like a miracle series of wires and Confianza wires. So I understood, it took me long time to understand. These retrograde connections and balloons and things, what they were doing. And I was always fascinated how they can take the retrograde wire and integrate wire, and then they used to connect it. So it required a lot of observation with these people. I used to talk to them on in the conferences. In Japan, also there are a lot of small meetings where they discuss these things, and they've got little booklets as well. They were in Japanese, but I used to talk to these people because I was on my own there. So I was in hospital all the time. There was nothing else for me to do in the evening. I used to go to gym, which was organized by the hospital, actually, in a local hotel called Niku Hotel in Toyohashi. There was a gym, and they arranged for me to go there, even provided me a push bike, actually, which was carried on with fellows, from one fellow to other fellows. So they were like very modest people, I found, and they were very interested in explaining what they are doing, and they were so particular about the wire handling. That is, I found very exciting. Going from India to UK to Japan is like they were so particular till the wire is placed all the way distal in the artery, all connection. So I think I learned some patience from them, and obviously they were very patient. I thought I wasn't that patient. And then I learned slowly. It was difficult, and obviously that was only an introduction. The most of the things I learned when I came back to my hospital. And obviously hospital people will have a different perception about these things when you do these long cases, bilateral approach, dedicated sessions, procedure planning a day before. So it was quite a cultural shift. So slowly I started doing it. And then I started when I finished my training, and I was appointed as a full-time consultant at a hospital in southwest of London, which is called Frimley Health NHS Foundation Trust, where I'm working now from 2011 till now for last 10, 11 years. And here I built up a program. It's a small hospital. We do about 1,200 angioplasties per year. There are 6 operators. So I do all the complex CTO procedures. So my colleagues refer it to me, and we do it together. So slowly, then I can incorporate this and modify the procedure as well a little bit. As I go, my anti-grade wire escalation now has completely changed, and other techniques like ADR and I was guided entries and retrograde have become more promising now. So obviously I worked as we continued working and attending. Obviously the things are evolving. The CTO PCI in 2010 and now is completely different. Obviously initial concepts like keeping patients, procedure planning are still the same. Then I learned from several operators. If you see, I was so pleased to see Bill Lombardi getting awarded at TCT recently. So I know Bill Lombardi from 2009. First I met him, and he came over to Japan during CCT. And Aaron Grantham, they both came to they used to run a CTO club there to Chicane. They still run it. They used to run a CTO class. I met them first time. They were so enthusiastic, excited about everything, and then slowly learn from every year attending meetings, TCT and CTO club. That's how my practice evolved as well.
And then Sudhir, so you were in the unique position to combine the Eastern teachings, Japan teachings, which is about patients, fine wire manipulation, but also you've been in the UK, that has been one of the early adopters of ADR and Stingray and reentry. How were you able to merge those two tendencies, and how has your practice evolved over time?
So yeah, so that has been a difficult part. Yes. So obviously, initially my procedures were majority of them anti-grade wire escalation, going on to retrograde and bailout ADR. So then I slowly started realizing that you have to be efficient, and procedure should move forward. So those kinds of efficiency and things have come into play with time, and the cultural thing in UK. And so then I started including and incorporating the hybrid algorithm more into my practice to speed up the process as well and more efficiently. So I start including, but I'm kind of a hybrid between hybrid algorithm and Japanese algorithm. So I'm a hybrid, so a hybrid of between those, because of a
Hyper
hybrid
Square.
square between those two trainings. So still looking at other operators like in UK, I admire all the operators like Simon Walsh, and James Pratt, Jonathan Hill. We've been working closely. I used to have an honorary contract with St. George's before. Great operators. So my ADR percentage is still lower than other operators. I'm integrated wire escalation, IVUS usage, and then ADR as well. And so I will use all those techniques for the benefit of our patient. And then I got involved with EuroCTO Club. I'm a contributor to EuroCTO Club as well. And I've been like 3 years back, I've been integrated as a full CTO member which has they've got you have to do like 300 cases and submit at least 50 cases per year to that database before you become and you need recommendation of two or three people. So I'm a full CTO member now. I've been continuously contributing to Euro CTO database, more than 70 cases per year.
Wonderful, wonderful, and congratulations. And again, the other thing that's fascinating is when you went to Japan, not only you learned the clinical part, but you did publish some of the, seminal, very early papers on the techniques. How were you able to do all that? How easy or hard was it? Combining the language barriers, the new techniques at the time where things were evolving. How were you able to achieve all that?
So yeah, that is very interesting. So when I landed there, initial 3 months when my licensing was going on, so I used to see that the physiologists there, so they have to keep a database of every procedure, not CTO, every procedure they enter in the database, and two people have to enter it, all the data like pre-procedure QCA, post-procedure QCA, procedural aspect, procedure time. So all that data is entered in a database. So I just asked them. They said, "Oh, we've got data from 2002 onwards, and till now, every patient is in the database, but it was all in Japanese." So I said, "How do I?" So they said, then I spoke to Asahi people. So Asahi people helped me to convert that database into English, all those fields. And then I had the data of 800 CTO cases from 2002 and 2009, year by year, looking at success rate. And even 90% patient had a follow-up angiogram at 3 months at that time, and still I think they do follow-up angiography on many patients. That is a procedure there with imaging data, and that's where I published this paper. I submitted it to JAG in 2009, 800 cases, looking at the trends, how the CTO PCI has evolved from 2002, 80% to 90%. There was not much retrograde at that time, so most of it was due to incorporation of parallel wire and IVUS guided entry, which increased the success rate from 70 to 85, and then from 85 up to 95, which has gone up, mainly incorporating retrograde procedures. So I was able to publish, and I still remember there was a CCT conference where I presented this data, and Martin Leon and Greg Stone was attending the conference. So I got my first invite to attend a TCT and give a talk. So I presented in 2011 in the main arena. I presented my experience about CTO PCI along with Aaron Grantham. So I presented with, I still remember that. I consider that as my highlight of my career. So the people around me helped me with my, and I had a lot of time to do that. So Asahi, and they took all the pains, but the data was already there, which was collected prospectively. The data was collected on each patient, and I believe still they collect it. So the QCA and all the analysis were there, and then I have to write it up, and then a lot of people helped me in doing that statistical analysis and things, and that paper also got published in JAC Intervention in 2011.
Yeah, and Sudhir, when it comes to the cases now, I know the Japanese operators do seem to have this Zen approach, this very relaxed. Do you get stressed out, anxious when you do those cases?
Yeah, so obviously I'm not quite as zen as Japanese operators, so do stress out. I previously I used to, like in my work, I always used to look for my CTO cases a day before, but I've stopped doing that now. Obviously, I will review them before, because that used to play on my mind. That, oh, what will happen and this and that. So there is some stress level. Slowly, as the years have passed, we've learned to get less stressed about it, and use certain kind of algorithm, strategy, and what will be the end of procedure. Obviously, I've learned to handle failures better now, and also have dealt with complications. So there is some stress involved, but with the teamwork approach and proper counseling of the patients, I've learned to overcome these things now.
And then how do you approach the failed or complicated case where things don't go the way you're supposed to go?
Well, yes. So this happens quite often. The procedures fail as well, and sometimes you take on failure cases, and sometimes you have a major complication. So just try to keep cool and do things as per algorithm, what you have to manage the complications. And then we do like kind of a debriefing after the case, which is quite standard in our hospital. We do debriefing and see what we could have done better and how we can improve things going forward. But clearly, there is some stress. We have to just um, look at the life outside work, to do other things and try to take your mind off these things. You will try to do your best for the patients, and then try to cut off and try to overcome these negative thoughts. Yeah.
And then when it comes to training people, um, do you have something specific that you look for in someone who comes to train with you? Is there something about character, techniques? What do you makes you excited about the trainees that you have?
So trainees obviously they have to be motivated, and they have to be interested in learning crown total occlusion PCI. So I usually we get trainees from our local training program, and they are at different stages of training. So they get introduced to some of the initial skills. So mainly, obviously, there's a lot of evidence has evolved over the years, and people have to understand first. Not all chronic total occlusion need to be opened up. So as long as they've got good understanding, then we can introduce them to supervised training program. And in terms of training, I do a lot of training I do some proctoring in India, actually, from very early stages. After finishing my training, I went to India for a few months, and then I got involved with a lot of training program there. So I still do, like every year I travel 3 or 4 times to India. There are certain hospitals, they just keep chronic total occlusion cases for me, and there I enjoy training them in terms of wire escalation. So just assess what their training competency is, and what stage of training they are, and then introduce them to the different techniques. Because sometimes getting all this retrograde dissection re-entry is too much for average operators.
Okay. And then, Sudhir, when it comes to keeping in good shape to be able to do all these procedures and the things that you are doing in your lab, what do you do?
Well, that's an interesting thing. Obviously, I don't do much regular exercise activity or thing, but I do regular walking, and I keep. So my hobby interests are mainly keeping up to date with the world affairs, and also recently, like last few years, I've been involved in a couple of. I'm a founder member of a couple of startups which are not related to chronic total occlusion angioplasty. They are more into prevention of cardiovascular disease. So one of them is looking at artificial intelligence and machine learning to detect coronary calcium from chest CT scans and cardiac CT scans, and assess and predict the possibility of them having a coronary artery disease at 10 years, to early identification from chest CT. So we have I've got a team of 4 or 5 people who, and some artificial intelligence and machine learning engineers. So I give a lot of time to that and out of hours, and we have got some paper and publications coming out of it. And second, I'm developing algorithm, or like a platform, to deliver cardiac rehabilitation at home. And this is one area which is very close to my heart, particularly from Indian subcontinent point of view, because cardiac rehabilitation is non-existing in Indian subcontinent, and it is quite advanced in West. And the cardiac rehabilitation is not given the same importance it's given to angioplasty and other things. So I'm developing an online platform which includes all the important components of cardiac rehab, and then the patients can have interaction with the physicians from home, and they can do the rehab in their home atmosphere after the PCIs and things. So those are some of the things I do. Then I spend time with my family. So my twins have grown up now, So they are both in medical school. So my daughter is in second year medical school. My son is in first year medical school. So there's a lot of time goes on, mainly with obviously taking them to the unis and talking to them. And oh, thank
Congratulations.
you. And going with the holidays together. So we are planning a holiday together in December, because they only get a few days off from uni. So, and then visiting family because my family is in India, my mom and my wife's mom and other extended family. So every time we go to India, take time to visit them and talk to them. So just so I think the time there's not much time to do anything else.
No, congratulations. Looks like you have a lot of interest, and what's also very refreshing is you have interest outside the world of complex PCI, which is wonderful because sometimes we get too focused on that particular area. Just curious on the cardiac rehab. So it just gives them an exercise prescription. Does it give them diet? I mean, what exactly does the app
Oh, so
do?
app so we are in the process of testing it now as a PhD project in one of the hospitals, All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Rishikesh. So one of the students has taken this on. So what the app does is once you register, so it has got an exercise diary there, and then exercise can be prescribed, which can be communicated to him. Then there are um, all the other components like dietary advice, medicine adherence, and there are certain videos about know your heart health, what does the heart mean. So there are a lot of pictorial videos and things which patients can have a look at it in their own time, and they can communicate with the cardiac rehab specialist from time to time, like twice a week initially, and then once a week going forward for up to 12 weeks. So we are testing this home rehab with conventional whatever rehab is there available in a teaching hospital in India in a randomized fashion on 100 patients. So that is about to start. So that is what it is doing, and I have done some research into it. There are a few programs available from Stanford University. There's a program available commercially in US. It used to be called, I'm not sure, they've changed the name now. It is from Stanford University program. They provide some, and a lot of hospitals have taken this on board and outsourced their cardiac rehab to this app-based home cardiac rehab, where they communicate with them, and they have shown pretty effective uptake of cardiac rehab using this home cardiac rehab approach, as compared to hospital-based cardiac rehab, because patients find it very difficult to come back to hospital for these programs.
Perfect. And again, that's a great endeavor, and again, a lot of potential value to help people. Do you have a favorite movie and a favorite book?
Well, I'm not a very book reader, but recently I read a few parts of it, When Breath Becomes Air by Kapati. Is a neurosurgeon, training neurosurgeon in a hospital in New Jersey. So that obviously excited me a lot and gave a lot of insight into how once a doctor is diagnosed with severe terminal illness, how his journey was. It is very interesting. Obviously, we do all treatment for patients from patient's perspective, but this changed my perspective completely in terms of how the patient journey is. From our point of view, it is coronary angioplasty and then post angioplasty follow-ups and things like that. But from patient's perspective, I think there are far more things more important for patients when they come for the procedure or after the procedure. So I really like that book. So I'm not a avid book reader, but I enjoyed that book. And movie, I mainly watch Bollywood movies. So many movies I have watched, but they're all you must have seen, quite like family dramas or those kinds of stuff.
And then, how many hours do you sleep?
Yeah, so I sleep at least minimum of 6 to 7 hours.
Okay.
Usually,
And,
yeah.
And you find that you have enough energy to keep up with the demands of the complex procedures and the things that you do in the lab.
Yeah, so yeah, sometimes it can be very stressful these doing the current total occlusion PCI and things. So in our hospital, we do procedure in a format that we have sometimes CTO days once a month where we do 3 or 4 CTOs in a day and nothing else is booked on that day. So and then we some other operators. So we are like 2 operators. So we do with each other. And on my list, I book CTO as a double slot, so we don't book too many cases because of being a solo operator. So try to manage it this way, because when I'm in the lab, like Thursday is my lab day, so I will book one CTO on Thursday and Monday is my lab day. So I book one CTO double slot on each of these days and then do other cases on the CTO days, because I have to manage some acute emergency patients as well. And it is very difficult to keep the same energy and momentum going on for the whole day, I find in the practice where I am practicing now. But mainly in proctoring, I do more cases, three, four, I've done even 6, 7 cases in a day. But then it is shared by other operators, senior operators are there. So obviously the jobs are shared and the stress is also shared between different operators. So
Perfect. So, Sudhir, what are you most proud of the things you've achieved so far?
well, I'm proud that I've been able to learn these current total occlusion PCI, and I was able to help my patients here in my practice. And I keep updating my technique by continuing medical education, attending all the international conferences, especially CTO sessions, and incorporating into my practice. So the best the patient can get the best possible care. So that keeps me motivated as well and gives me energy to keep learning as well. And obviously I want to do more training now for the youngsters, so that they can learn from whatever we have learned over the years, and they can become better operators.
Wonderful. And then, Sudhir, what excites you the most about the future?
I think future is good. The technology excites me the most. There are a lot of technology coming in, and incorporating technology into your work practice by can reduce stress in many ways in terms of like radiation management. Like radiation is a big thing, and we are always worried about radiation control, keeping the radiation down as much as possible, fluoro saving, and those kinds of things, and doing low contrast PCI. Now there are a lot of solutions coming up. Technology in terms of radiation control that excites me, and there are a lot of new tools coming up, imaging tools coming up to make your procedures better. So that is that all the future looks good, and the future uh, young doctors are coming up which are enthusiastic in adopting doing complex PCI, chip PCI. I see chip program being rolled out in many institutions now. At my time, there was no chip program. I have to just find the fellowship myself, arrange my own fellowship. Now there are dedicated, structured chip program. Particularly, US is leading in the chip program, but they're slowly coming up to UK and other centers as well. People have focused, and people are getting more training. So I think they're getting more streamlined and structured training. And obviously, I want to see my kids
Wonderful.
growing up, becoming fine doctors. So I'm learning from them as well, technology and use of devices in your own practice. And you are like, obviously, I look up to you, and you have got so many things going on, your book, your podcast, and you keep up to speed with, and the technology has allowed us to do many things.
No, absolutely. And is any of your kids want to do interventional cardiology or intervention, or it's too early
Yeah, I
yet?
think it is too early at the moment, and they are still training. So they are only in first year, second year. They are going through anatomy and physiology, but they are excited in the heart. They every time they test my cardiac physiology and then the muscles and things, which they get it right more than me.
Wonderful. Well, Sudhir, again, congratulations. Again, many things accomplished so far. One of the landmark papers is one of your studies on the early stage of CTO PCI. You kept it up for so many years. So thank you again for taking the time today. If I had to close, can you give us your top advice for young operators who want to do complex CTO PCI or any PCI?
Yeah, thank you, Manos. I really enjoyed this conversation. So, my advice to the youngsters is to have patience, patience also, and slowly they will learn the procedural techniques. So, have patience, commitment, and that's what I will advise them. Yeah, patience to learn the technique, and it takes time. There is no shortcut for experience. Slowly the things will they have to make it happen. If they dream for it, this will happen. And
Great. So pace and practice and things will happen.
yeah, that's what I would
Oh,
say. Yeah.
wonderful. So again, thanks so much, Sudhir.
Thank you, Manos. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Sensei podcast.